That's why you have people like Lefty and Joe that taught and still teach, into their 90s, because that's their gift.
And I think the mentors like these guys, like if you look at people like Joe and Lefty, like one of the things that they left is that they brought people along like Blaine Chocolate and George Daniel. I mean, these are the guys that are leading the charge now. George is amazing. His presentations, I go to the fly fishing show, I watch his presentations.
He's a great instructor. Yeah.
And presenter and everything. And he had a great mentor. You learn from one of the best.
You'll learn something, even if it's like, say he's doing a talk on Euro nymphing and you're not interested in it, you're still going to learn something, even if you're not a Euro nympher, about feeding a fish or behavior or where they live or something. You're going to learn something from him, because he really has a lot of information and he delivers it well, and he packs it in there. Just like if you've ever read one of his books, it's like over information.
It's dense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Loop to Loop is sponsored by Patagonia, high-performing outerwear made responsibly for our planet. G. Loomis, American-made fly rods manufactured in Woodland, Washington. Airflow, next-gen PVC-free fly lines with new tech, new formulas, and the same obsession. Dynaking, precision-built vices to last a lifetime. Ross Reels, high-performance reels designed, machined, anodized, and assembled in Colorado for more than 50 years. It's our great honor today to have Ben Furimsky with us in the studio. Welcome, Ben. Ben is the owner and operator of the Fly Fishing Show, the amazing event that goes across the country and gets thousands and thousands of fly fishers together with the world's leading experts in fly fishing. I love going to them. Your point of the spear in bringing all the fly fishers together.
Yeah. I mean, it's that we are the largest gathering of fly fishermen in the fly fishing community in the world, and of someone from you that works in the industry to someone that's just even thinking about getting into fly fishing. So it's really cool in that aspect, because you can see what those folks might have in interest for what you do in work, but they can also get motivated by meeting people that they'd never have a chance to meet or learn from, like right out of the get-go.
I often think in many ways your job and my job are a lot the same. We work with a lot the same people, and it's fun. We get to like hang out with the world's leading experts and learn from them and take their knowledge and bring it out to the world.
Sure.
And that's a lot of fun.
Sure. Yeah. I was just talking to someone who was talking to Andy Mill, and he had mentioned about to that guy, and then he said he brought up my name. That's why I was talking about it. He's like, you guys get the opportunity to hang out with all these people and gain their knowledge and just accelerate your own fishing at a rapid level that other people can't. And that's actually something that you can do at the shows. It's just like a regular fly angler, by mingling and meeting some of these pros and talking to them. And it's not just listening to a podcast like this or watching video tutorials online, because if you don't quite get something, you can be like, wait, what was that you just did? Or even just talking about those vices with the groove. People put a hook in in their vise. They may not even know how to put it in the groove. I actually showed someone the other day at the International Fly Tire Symposium, because they were like looking at my vise, and I was like, well, I was tying with some big rodent flies with big hooks, stuff that I used in Mongolia, and the leverage that you put on the hooks, keep that, so I was putting it in the groove, and I was explaining to them, they're like, oh, I never saw that before. And they maybe never had a need, or maybe just didn't learn it, but something that's simple, whether it's the vise company or a fly tire, You don't always find that just in the video because people take that for granted that are teaching things and just do it and go to the next thing.
And you get to find out that they're real people too, and it's like firsthand experience.
Absolutely.
It's like,
Yeah.
You see Popovic's just sitting there at a table tying. You can go up and stand and just be like eyeball to eyeball with him and see him get his fingers all dirty with silicone and stuff like that, and talk to him while he's doing it.
You can talk about other things. I mean, he loved to talk about, some of his other experiences in life with people, and it can bond, and he's a super friendly guy. Talking about Andy, he and I both had, skiing backgrounds. I was nowhere like an Olympian like him, but, you could see it in the way we fight big fish. We both fight big fish the same way, and it was because we were using kind of our balance and athleticism that we learned from skiing to fight big fish. It's not just, an efficient way to do it, basically.
More athletic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, better way to lift and pull instead of like, just pulling on a rod, because a rod's a lever.
I actually didn't know you were a big skier.
Oh yeah, I taught and coached skiing for 28 years and professional big mountain skier for quite a while.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Tiki sounds like your son Tiki sounds like he's crushing it on the slopes as well. Huh?
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's getting there.
Could there be a better combination of sports than skiing and fishing together, like seasonally? That works really well.
No, it does. It works really well because, you're playing in the water all year. It's just frozen in the winter. And when skiing's good, fishing's usually not. At least, when you're at home in the mountains, you can always travel. It hurts some travel stuff, but nothing does that more than my work as far as limiting, because I can't go anywhere for certain months of the year because I'm just too busy. And
I don't want to go.
South America gets crushed for me.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but how did you get so much into skiing if you're at Penn State? You're wearing a Penn State shirt. I know you were at the Penn State football game last night.
I was on the Penn State ski team. Yeah, I raced for Penn State. Made it to
really?
nationals. Yeah, I made it to nationals when I was racing there. But my dad had a business. His original business was a leather store at a ski area in Pennsylvania, at Seven Springs. So I was there all the time. I was just running around as a kid.
Pennsylvania can make good skiers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, there's a lot of really good skiers that come out of Pennsylvania.
Are there really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I
I thought they're all from Colorado or Michigan. It's just...
Gosh, there's a lot of good ones. But no, I would say Pennsylvania, Vermont is really, race-centric. People learn to use their edges here.
Yeah, it's a little icy sometimes.
It's easier to get someone to adjust. Yeah, it's easier to get someone to adjust and learn how to ski powder. Although you can always tell, like the East Coast skiers when they come out to Colorado on a powder day and trying to edge too much. But it's easier to get them to adjust to the powder than it is to take a spoiled powder skier and teach them how to carve on ice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How's the shows looking this year? Like, what's the 2026 show season looking like?
From your end, it's going to look awesome. It's a ton of work on my side. I'm still in the weeds. Obviously, you saw I was just sitting there working on my computer. Any minute I get, I'm just working on it. Because there's so many little things. That's what people don't understand. What my job is remembering 8 million little things that need to be done. All kinds of things, like from just ordering jugs of water for people to have, to scheduling all the presentations and assigning the booths and making flow. Talk about the relationships. I arrange relationships that people don't even know I do, because there might be two exhibitors that I'm like, these guys need to know each other. And I'll put their booths next to each other, and they come up to me later and they're like, man, that guy that was next to me was so cool. We hit it off and we formed this partnership and we're going to do this. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like, I did that on purpose. They don't even know. So there's tons of little things that I do like that to make it a good experience for everybody, because I really, what I do, it really is important for me that everybody has a good time, because they'll come back, and it makes my job easier, at the least of it. Other than being vested in being in the industry basically my whole life. I mean, I was tying flies and doing demonstrations when I was slightly older than Tiki. At like 13 or 14 years old, I was doing demos myself. So I've worked in about every aspect myself, and I can give that feedback from being in that role and try to make the show good for the guests, good for the exhibitors, and on either side. Like I say, if they have a great time, they're going to come back, and then my job the next year is that much easier. But we've got half the shows are already sold out for vendor space. Our Denver show has a waiting list for vendors that is longer than any other show besides one of the fly fishing show events in the world. Our waiting list is bigger than any other event in the world.
I love the Denver show. Like I'm coming this year. It's
cool.
See so many friends, and it's like a
Denver and Edison are the big
party
industry ones. Yeah, Edison. They're all different, and they're all different from like industry side to consumer side. I mean, there's a group of guys that come to a different show every year, and there's like 8 or 10 of them, and they just come to a different show every year. I see them, I run into them. They're like, oh, you're at this one this year, and and that's what they say. They're like, well, this guy's always here, or we want to see these vendors that just do this show because that's where their company's from. And they like to see the regional stuff and kind of get the feel. And it uses an excuse to do like a little kind of vacation and learn about the fishing in an area. So, whether it's their local show or one across the country, that they tie it in somehow. And Edison on the industry side is probably our most international because the airport's there. So we get a little more people from other countries with big New York City airports.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, consumers know you go there, you can buy a lot of stuff, a lot of products. It's like having 40 fly shops right in front of your face. Mm-hmm. You can see fly tying demonstrations, casting demonstrations. One of the things I think is cool is the sort of like private classes that are like in those back rooms and those seminars. Can you talk about that? Like, how many are they? What's it like?
Yeah, we call those classes with the experts. I'm kind of almost surprised you even know about those because they're kind of are a little bit of a sleeper thing, and probably the greatest value that you can get out of those out of the show, because we keep them intimate. They're limited depending on what it is and what the instructor's kind of skill level is with managing the crowd or their subject matter. Or some of them might bring a helper to handle a few more people, but we kind of keep them limited somewhere between 8 and 15 students. Now, it might be you might end up in a class with only 3 or 4 or 5, so really get some personal instruction. And they're $95, which includes your pass to the show for the day. So really an additional $75, and they're 2.5 hours long, and you're getting one-on-one instruction, whether it be casting or fly tying or like kind of a how-to curriculum with the expert. And the coolest thing is you get to know people. In fact, we were talking earlier, you and I, about Joe Humphreys, and he did those classes for years, and now at 96, and just knowing the person he is, we do just coffee with Joe. That's the class. I mean, you just sit down and talk to Joe, and people sign up for that. But I would do that.
I would do that.
Yeah, I mean, if I would, that's what I mean. It's like, if you know what these are, it's a steal.
So the list that's on your website, the list of all the private classes at each event that you can sign up for.
Yeah, classes with the experts, and you can find that on the website.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
And it'll give a description of what they are, and you can always email us or call us if you
wherever you live in America, whatever small town, big town, you can't get that kind of private class just on the regular. You can't even get FaceTime with these people. So
right, yeah, they might come and speak at a club or something, and you get to talk to them a little bit afterwards. But this is hands on. I mean, you might be tying flies with, whoever it is that's literally like reaching over your shoulder and being like, no, hold the materials like this, and fine tuning it in a way that you're never going to get that digitally.
I was in the back area where the rooms were in New Jersey last year, and there was, I think it was a Euronymphing class, and it was absolutely full.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
people
those are
were
popular ones
dying.
because they get, it can be overcomplicated, and people don't understand the difference. I mean, I learned nymphing here in Pennsylvania, and it comes from legends like Joe, and we called it tight line nymphing, or just really just nymphing. And I remember when that was first getting popular, and people were like, "Oh, you Euro nymph," and I'm like, "No, I'm just nymphing." It was just I didn't fish with an indicator, and I was tight line nymphing, and so the roots of it aren't very different, but the rigging can get complicated and overwhelms people, and a lot of people honestly don't understand the rigging and for the reasoning of it. I mean, there's people that just, they use this big anchor nymphs where they can use weights. They don't even realize that they don't need that fly, that nothing's really biting, and it's just got it's basically just a big bead on a hook, because in competition you can't use weights. So
Can't use split shot, so you
Yeah.
need the fly as a substitute.
yeah,
split shot.
they doctored the fly into a weight, but you don't need to do that if you're fishing, like especially if nothing's biting that one. Just put on 2 flies that work. So something as simple as that, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you had to have that in order for it to be Euro nymphing." I'm like, "Well, not really. It's more the fishing. That's just the terminal tackle."
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, sink rates are a big thing with that as well. It's not, people don't really quite get that,
Yeah.
and that's complicated.
Yep. When's your show season? Like, when's the very first show? Is
Marlboro's the first show this year, and
it the first weekend of January?
no,
When-
it's the second. It might actually be the third. I can't remember if it's like the 15th and 16th that weekend. I'd have to look at the calendar.
And then go. And
I'm
then
working
it goes
on, like,
to
schedules with
what's the last one?
The last one's Lancaster.
Is it
Your
Little
home show.
Lancaster? Yeah.
Yep, that's the last one.
Thank
We
you
kinda
for
ra-
starting that little.
That one's
show.
gangbusters. People
love
love
it.
that one, and for industry people, that's one of our favorite ones. It's the only one that's really well. Now we added our Bellevue show is kind of in a downtown area, but still like city. But Lancaster in that arts district with all the stuff, and it's not super inflated. You can get reasonable food and entertainment. So it's a nice one for us folks there working, because we can go outside of the hotel and kind of, we're still all together and we're still, mingling, but we're kind of in a fun environment instead of just like the hotel.
Yeah.
Being stuck in the hall in the hotel, and it feels much more work centric when you never get out, leave your hotel for 4 days.
I love that you feel that way. I always liked that one, but I thought maybe I'm just biased because it's close to where I live. But
Yeah,
it's got a cool vibe.
Everyone that does that show, it's our favorite. All the people that work at it.
Yeah, it's really been growing. So I just had a chat with your dad, and we talked a lot about like the old days of the fly show, like the Lefty Craze and Bob Popovics, and all the great legends who they brought out. I wanted to ask you, like, who's the new young blood? Like, who are some people that, like, I'm looking for professional hints. Like, who should I be talking to? Like,
I mean, there's a lot of people, but a lot of people ask me that question, and I really don't think we'll ever have like another Lefty Cray.
that's true, because it was a time.
Yeah, I mean, it's, someone can be, jump on Instagram and be Insta famous, and, we don't even know how many of those numbers are real people or what they did, and, how much of an expert they are, or whether they're regurgitating stuff that they just looked up and never really developed. But Lefty did everything. And he used to say, you need to be a photographer. If you want to be a professional in his realm, you needed to be a photographer, you needed to be a speaker, you needed to be a writer. And that's how you can become a professional in fly fishing. And I think honestly, our sport has lost direction with professionals a little bit. I think it's our most underutilized aspect from the industry side. I mean, you go to a baseball show or something, and there's going to be professional baseball players there signing autographs, or golf, even bass fishing. There'll be a line of people waiting to just get your autograph if you're the pro top anglers. But in fly fishing, we don't use them. And I think part of it has been that we've lost the difference between a professional and like a working professional, like a guide or someone. There's a difference between a pro because they work in the sport. You're a pro. You're getting paid for it. But a professional speaker or a celebrity is a different level, and they should be a different level because they have to do more. There's people, let's just take casting, for example, and I get 100 people a year that will tell me they can cast better than the expert that's on the pond. But if I put a microphone in front of their face, they're just going to freeze, and they'll just stand there and cast. And I'm like, nobody's learning from you, and they're like, yeah, I couldn't stand out there, but they want to still tell you they're a better caster than a professional up there. And, who knows? I mean, I kind of stink when I get up on like one of those ponds, but put me out in 30 knot wind with a big fly and I can hit the target. But I get on the pond and for some reason I change my style and cast weird and, get nervous myself, like people are watching me.
You can perform, you can do it, you can catch the fish. But the difference with someone like Lefty is he's a teacher. He can show you how to do it.
Yeah, he can teach you
and demonstrate things
and he
on
entertains
command.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that was unique about Lefty, besides having to build his career and write books and do all these things that not everybody has to do now to get well known, is he was an entertainer. I mean, within 5 minutes, you felt like he was like your friend. I mean, his jokes that he made, and, he felt like he was like your uncle or your grandfather or your friend so quickly. And there's not a lot of people that can just have that skill. That's not something you can learn. I think that's something that, certain people are born with, like also people that remember dates and things like that. I'm the worst at that. Some people are like, oh yeah, in 1978, on July 13th, there was an awesome cicada hatch. You're like, that was the other day to me.
I agree with you that in the fly fishing business, we don't rely enough on like credible experts. I think celebrity has become a tainted word, but I think a lot of brands are reluctant to get tied up with a certain person just because they want to be their brand all by themselves. You know what I mean? But I think they can really, a lot of these brands can get a boost by being with really credible authorities.
And it actually pays off to be vested in them. Because like, say, for example, with our shows, if you had, Ross's fly rods or whatever, and you signed we'll call him an ambassador, which is maybe the better word. People have different levels, and I think there should be a couple of different levels, because how do you get into this, and how do people start? It's one of my to-do list things that I have, speaking of the classes with the experts, is I want to do a class with the experts that we sponsor and we provide free to younger professionals or younger experts in our sport to learn how to become a real professional. So they could talk to someone like you for your specialties from Fly Fisherman Magazine or something like that. What do you want from photography for that? What do you want from articles? And we have all these people here that are experts, especially even Accelerate. Like they could talk to Gary Borger could talk to him about how do you speak to public, because Gary could Gary could do a presentation to the two of us right now, or he could stand in Beaver Stadium to 100,000 people and teach fly casting, and it wouldn't faze him at all because he was a professor, and most of our best speakers do come from education, so they're in front of people speaking all the time, and they know how to do it. They're comfortable, so they could teach that to the up and coming expert, and someone else could teach another thing like social media. Here's how you want to handle your social media account. So I was digressing there, but to that's something I'd like to do. But to answer your question more is what happens is like the guy that you have that's your ambassador for Ross Fly Rods, our made up company here. He works for you, and you are the rod designer and company owner or whatever. You do it all, or maybe you have a couple of people, but you need some staff in your booth at the show. So you bring him into the show. So what he's doing is listening to you talk about some of the technical knowledge that he may never know about building a fly rod. So you're making him know your product better. So later he can explain to customers your product better, or cover you in like maybe an open house at his local shop or things like that. And someone doesn't say like, hey, ambassador, why do you like these fly rods? And he's like, because they're the best. He actually is like, well, this is what I like about them. Where do you fish? Oh, well, you would actually like this model better, but it's still same brand. And these are the things that you're going to like, and be able to answer the questions like a professional. And then that professional is in your booth working, and he may be a pro caster. So I'm like, well, Ross, let's have your ambassador cast on the pond, because he's already there, and it kind of is a symbiotic relationship there. And then he's casting on the pond. So when people, and he's maybe representing your brand or using your rods, but he's really teaching casting. He's not doing a sales pitch. As you know, our presentations aren't about that. They're about information. Mm-hmm. And then when people want to ask him questions after his demo's gone, he's like, well, I'm going to be in this booth. And he walks over to your booth, and now a whole bunch of people come in to ask him questions about casting and end up testing the rod. So it kind of works, and that's how it kind of like creates a cycle. And then as he gets more valuable to you, and that's where I'm saying like, the long-term relationship makes a difference, because you may have started with this guy as a kid, and then when he's, lefty, and he's been with your brand for 70 years, he is, he may be the face for your company.
You grow together.
Yeah.
I really like that idea.
Yeah.
And we've seen it work so many times. Like I've thought, like, would Nike be where it is without Michael Jordan?
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
even though he played other places, like
they both came up together.
What team are you going to associate Tom Brady with? There's athletes that, even though they trade or things happen, that are very, same with Jordan, the Bulls, it's just, Nike, the Bulls, like his, symbol, like the Air Jordan look, it is part of the brand.
Yeah, for me, it's a big magnet. Like, I really love G. Loomis fly rods, and a lot of that's because of Steve Rajeff.
Incredible caster.
The guy's the man. He's he is our Michael Jordan of casting. Mm-hmm. So, 25 years ago when he's designing rods and saying, this is the rod, yes, I'm all in,
Yeah.
You win 46 casting championships. There's a lot of credibility. You have to believe what the guy's saying. And you brought up Andy Mill previously. Like, when I'm walking at a show and there's a Hardy booth with Andy there, you go up and talk to him, of course, because the man's a legend.
Yeah. And he's great to talk to, too.
Boosts the brand. They're both better together. I like that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and like Andy's got those people skills, too, like we were talking with Lefty. I mean, I was just telling someone the other day that he was a professional sportscaster, and they're like, oh, I never knew that. No wonder he's so good, because like they were surprised at how well he spoke and what he was doing. I forget what it was related to, but I was like, well, yeah, he did that professionally for a while. And they're like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, he covered the Olympics
Yeah.
for 20 years.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember what network, like ABC or NBC or something like that. But yeah, you talk on a microphone for a while, you get good at it.
Yeah, yeah.
If they keep asking you back,
skills.
you must be good at it, I guess is the real answer.
There's a skill for the professionals as well. I am blown away by how few people know how to use a microphone. It's not very complicated, but people are waving it around like this. You can't hear. And
well, you've got a good vantage point. You've got microphones and speaker systems and everything going.
Yeah,
every show all day
all
long,
all over the place. It's a carnival from our side.
You do get some time to go fishing though. Every once in a while.
Yeah, it gets tough. It gets tough. I talk about it a lot and daydream about it more, but I end up at the computer a lot. I fished a lot more when I was guiding than I did doing this full time.
My buddy Joe brings cigars on every fishing trip, so there's one special night where we can sit outside, pour a whiskey, look at the stars, smoke a cigar, and swap fishing stories. We've done it in Patagonia, Mongolia, Bolivia, and all around the world. Joe is obviously a hell of a nice guy. The cigars are just one reason he's invited on every trip. This holiday season, be more like Joe. Give the gift of premium handmade cigars from Cigars International. They have the largest selection, the best prices, and customer service that's second to none. They have free shipping every single day. No minimums, no limits. Just shop, check out, give a great gift. Whether you're shopping for a seasoned aficionado or someone new to cigars, Cigars International makes it easy with expert guides, staff reviews, and advice. Don't forget the accessories and humidors to make your gift unforgettable. Get 20% off your order when you use our code FLYFISH at checkout, or just go to cigarsinternational.com/flyfish and the discount code will automatically apply. You recently went to Mongolia, which is I really want to hear all about because I got kind of a soft spot for Mongolia. What was it like? Where'd you go?
You came up quite a bit, and your fish that you caught there has a name. I forget what they call it. Do you remember? Did they tell you?
No.
They named your fish, and someone caught it again. The
2
same
years later.
fish, yeah, and it was a couple inches bigger.
2
inches bigger. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully we're going to find out a lot of information about these fish because when we were there, we worked with the Wild Salmon Center. We were anglers catching the fish for them to tag. And I think 42 or 72 fish ended up getting tagged overall, mixed species. But they put these tags in that are, and also tracking devices along the river that will ping every time a fish passes.
Really?
Now, some of them, they put, I can't remember. I mean, I think they put like 10 different tracking devices. Because if a fish does swing, it pings, the tracking device will ping every so often. Mm-hmm. If one just blew by, one of these devices, it might not ping, but the odds are it's probably going to get it on the next one. So we're going to get data on these fish that we caught on where they go, how they move, how they might migrate, what they might do for the spawn, weather, winter, seasons, and how much they grow. Because if a fish is caught, they're also going to be able to have these handheld devices, or it might even be an app on the phone. I can't remember what that was, to just find out if, they can just swipe a fish, kind of like you're getting scanned at the airport and be like, ding, oh, this fish has a tag, because they're embedded
inside.
They're about the size of a cigarette lighter, and it was pretty interesting. So these are the bigger ones, and they could only be in fish. This is more of the scientists' information, but I think it was had to be over 24 inches maybe, or something like that, to be big enough to have.
It's surgically implanted?
Yep. So they brought them in and they sedated the fish. So we'd land the fish. It was pretty hectic at first, but then once things settled down and we understood what the scientists wanted to do a little bit, and people were more spread out instead of a bunch of people on top of the fish, I'll tell you a funny story on that, by the way. But they would sedate them, like, so they filled up a basin with a solution that would sedate the fish. Basically, they would, pass out, and then they put them in this little operating table, basically, and make an incision about 3 inches long or 2 inches long. I forget what it was, and then they slide in that thing, and then they gave them stitches, just like you would have stitches if you got cut, and sutured them up, and then we dumped out that sedation solution and put it in fresh water and let them hang in there. And then once they started coming to a little bit, then it was just like reviving a fish that maybe you fought a little long, and it was tired, and then all of a sudden they'd take off and come. And they have a incredible survival rate. They did one study, and it was like, which is interesting, and that's kind of why they like the fly anglers catching them. But it's interesting not only for us in like just fly angler mortality. I mean, it is a blood sport. Some of our fish don't make it that we catch, and we hope they do, but some don't. But they have, like, these fish coming in and getting operated on have like a 98 or 99% survival. It's really crazy high. Crazy high. And I mean, I'm sure it varies from the species, but it was...
They're getting surgery done on
them. Yeah, they were
them.
getting surgery. I mean, it was...
They're in captivity. How long does this take? 20 minutes? Half hour?
They got pretty quick on it. No, I mean, like, that's what I said. Like, the first ones were maybe taking 20 minutes to half hour. And then once they got in a rhythm and, like, we understood more and were, like, helping them rather than being in their way, it was, I think, like, maybe 7 to 10 minutes.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to do a story on that. I didn't know that was going on. That's on the Delger?
Yeah. No, we were on the Onan.
Onan. Okay.
Yeah, that's where we were, because there was not much done there. The Delger has had some stuff done and been protected, I think, a little longer, if I remember.
Okay.
But the Onan is the longest unobstructed river, and so that's where the information crosses borders and things like that. So there's more curiosity in to see what's going on.
Yeah,
but
that goes up into that big lake, right?
Yes. Eventually, and then, in one direction, and it goes all the way into China. So it's, as you know, those fish are. I would go back because I'm just really curious about them. It was very interesting, like fishing with some of the guys, like Peter Fong, that's been over there, and very into, like, he's kind of into the brain of the fish. He's like the Yoda of taimen. He's like the sensei over there. He's like, it's okay, you're gonna catch one.
And he
just
floated.
Relax.
He did like a 1,000-mile float or something.
Yeah,
up there, like,
really cool, really
crazy.
Cool. Yeah, just
the whole summer long, just floating.
One just down the river. Yeah, amazing, and really cool stories. He was telling us some of those, so it's really interesting to hear. Really cool guy, but. And he kind of gets into the fish, and it's like anywhere. And we were talking about this even with just techniques, but different guides kind of have their different, thoughts. And he had some interesting ways to look at where the fish might be living and why. But in the end, we just felt like we would hit a time. We couldn't figure out whether it was specifically the time, or you just hit a stretch where there was fish, but you had fish. Like, just fish your ass off casting until, this is still from Mongolia.
Oh, really?
I kind of hurt my elbow. And
some big rods and big flies.
Yeah, just nonstop casting. And I didn't stop because I'm like, for those fish, I felt like there's a big fish maybe in every third pool. And I mean, if you just stop to take a glass of water, you might miss that cast to that big one. And it just like eats at me. So I didn't stop fishing. And, but then all of a sudden it would turn on and we would just catch 4 or 5 in a row, like pretty good action. And, after 4 or 5 hours without a bite, and then you catch 4 or 5 in 30 minutes. And we're like, is it just turned on the whole river like this right now? Or did we just run into a run that has a lot of fish? And
I kind of get the idea they run in like little wolf packs.
Yeah. I think it was maybe a combo of the both, ultimately. But we struggled a little bit, just like you did. We hit some, our first day it was crystal clear, and so you could learn some of that stuff. I like technical fishing, and I tend to prefer low and clear and challenging conditions because I love sight fishing, and I can learn by reading the water and doing things at that higher level where even though the fishing may be better when it's a little off color and the fish are a little more aggressive, I like that low and clear. But we had low and clear, and we did pretty good the first day. And then the next day it rained all day, and then it blew out. And we had a tough day. And then it started, that river clears slower. I guess the Delger can clear it gets muddy quicker, but it can clear quicker too. Typical rivers, some when they get muddy, it takes a long time to clear up, and others can clear up the next day. It just depends on like riparian habitat and kind of soils.
Tributaries and stuff.
Yeah. And so it was the day that we left. It was kind of sad because we looked at the water and we're like, oh, it looks pretty good again today. We were like, we got to leave.
The day you leave is always a sad day.
Yeah. I'm sure that day was off the hook.
It's always how it is. So we were talking about fighting big fish.
Yeah.
And your stance and stuff. I watched you fight a big fish in a movie one time, a giant arapaima.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You went to Mongolia after me, but I feel like a lot of my South America stuff, I'm following in your footsteps.
Yeah, you did. There was quite a few that you've done like a year or two right after me. Yeah.
Like Ken Jam, you were like one of the very first people that went to Ken Jam.
Yeah, we were second group or third. There was one group there the year before, and then when we went, we were the second group, I think, second week to be there. I like kind of trying to be on the cutting edge for that same reason. Like I say, I would say my specialty in fly fishing is, if I had one, is figuring out a fishery. And we were just talking about this, and like a trout river, you can put me on a trout river, and I think within 5 days I can do as well as anybody, sometimes quicker, especially if it's busy and you can get information from people or eyeball them. But if there's nobody there, I can still figure it out, and that's takes some time. You might have to do different tactics and figure out whether they're in the pool, where the fish are, just like the taimen. And that's what's intriguing to me, is figuring it out. So I like to go to places kind of before they have it figured out, because I have more fun doing that.
So you don't just get told this is what you must do. There's a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, it's not as exciting for me to just be like, cast over there and there's this fish there. I mean, it's fun for that. I mean, I had hundreds of clients that I blew their minds with when I'm like, cast over by that rock. There's an 18-inch brown trout there. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, well, I saw him yesterday and the day before and the day before. If you make the right cast, that's his home. And they cast and they catch him, and they're like, I thought you were just joking, and they're amazed, but they're not really at a level where they're just fishing on their own. They might struggle to even know where to cast.
Yeah.
Maybe a decent angler, but there's a whole different level of like learning where fish are, and especially when you get into, diverse fisheries, unique fisheries, and just like that muddy water in the. I changed, and I kind of like had to. Peter worked with me on that because I was like, Peter, let's change our tactics here with this muddy water, because what we were doing 2 days ago in the clear water is not working, and I don't feel confident in it right now, because, then in the clear water, I was doing long casts, working it across the river, and, we'd see fish follow it, and you could tease them into striking it, and they were tracking the fly a long ways. And I think those fish, maybe it's part of that wolf pack little mentality you're saying, but I think they, they'll hunt something down from pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
But when your visibility is only 2 feet, they can't hunt it from very far. And also, I mean, it came up enough for us. There was logs and stuff floating down the river. And I mean, if you're laying in the middle of the river and one log comes by and smacks you in the head, you're going to move out of the way. I mean, we would do it.
Yeah.
We would
Not
move
good
out of the way.
feeding situation.
Yeah. So I was like, let's fish closer, shorter casts and hit more holding spots along the bank where the fish are going to hide in high water, and changed our tactics for that. And which actually that circles back to the funny story I was going to tell you with the scientists. So our first day after the science, we floated for, I think, 3 days, and then the scientists were showing up, and we met them at one of the camps, and then they were going to continue on the river with us. And they explained everything, and they're like, well, hopefully we get some fish and blah, blah, this and that. And it was taking a little bit of time to shove off because now we went from 3 of us floating for 3 days. Well, we had 2 anglers, a guide, and then 2 cameramen and another guide on another boat. So we had 6 of us. So we went from that, which we had kind of pretty dialed by day 3, to that we added like 7 more people, and then and there would have been more, but a couple of people had some flight issues. So we ended up with like 20 people within 2 more days. So it was a lot more going on at a small
It's an
camp.
entourage.
Yeah, and trying to figure out where they were going to go and how we're going to float and not be in everybody's way. But the first morning, they were like, we want to get a fish. We really hope we can get these. We don't even know. They had goals, and it was taking a while to get ready. So I was talking to Peter and about this bank, and he's like, this bank can be pretty good. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go fishing while everybody's loading the boats. And I walked down, and I'd scoped the bank the night before. I walked down and fished it. Didn't have any luck, but I kind of learned it. So this time I approached it a little differently, and there was one pocket that in particular that looked pretty good, and it's a real high bank. So I'm up on the bank, I don't know, maybe 8 feet up above the water's edge, and just kind of did this cast and swung a fly right into this pool, big dark streamer, big black streamer, probably 10 or 12 inches long. And this fish just comes out of like the murkiness and just eats it like he's sipping a dry fly. Just came up and ate it. And surprisingly, I didn't yank it out of his mouth, because when they eat it so slow like that, you pull it before they even close their mouth. I let him take it, hooked it, yelled. Everybody came down. It was chaos. And that was after the water was still high, but dropping. And I mean, we're up on this bank and literally trying to land this fish to sedate it. And the whole bank just starts crumbling because of all the people in the high water, because the water came up like 2 feet, and just a giant clump of bank just caves in and falls down into the river. And everyone's like, watch out, it's caving in.
Is it like the glacial, like bowling ball size
exactly.
cobbles?
Just like the cobble side with sod at the top that's already drooping. And so it just started crumbling underneath. And then we were like, look out. And a couple guys jumped out of the way, and a big, probably 500 pounds of dirt fell down the bank.
Brutal.
But we got that fish, and they were just like, can't believe you did that already. We're already stoked.
That's awesome.
It was a cool fish. It was a nice one.
Who was filming? They were just filming it for the scientists, or?
Well, we brought Chase and Amy. Was it Black Hole Productions?
Okay.
I believe.
They're making a film?
Yep.
Sweet.
Yep. We wanted to do one on basically the conservation side, a little bit like what you did. You guys were doing they did the samples from the fins, and they'll get all the information like you got, but then we were adding in the tracking stuff. And we got it was a little more diverse fishery there. The Aimer pike we caught.
I was going to ask you about the pike, if you got one of those.
I got several. I thought that was going to be like the lucky one, but we did all right with those. And in fact, we targeted them for a little bit, because when the river came up, they hang in pikey spots, like these sloughs, which stayed clearer. Some of the sloughs were still crystal clear when we were in the river. It was muddy, so we kind of like started making sure to hit those. And they were a blast. They're beautiful. Look like your normal pike, but the markings on them are really beautiful.
Crazy spots.
Nice sized. And then there's the Amur grayling. So they have in that river, we've got the largest salmonoid and the world's smallest grayling that only go up to about 10 inches. And they were beautiful too. Yeah. So
I didn't realize they were different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are all the grayling in Mongolia different, or just there's regular ones and the smaller ones?
No, they've got like the regular ones. They've got a giant grayling that gets to like 36 inches. A giant grayling that lives only in, and it has like a smaller dorsal fin. And then there's the yellowtail one that almost looks like someone cut the fish and glued two together. Now that's where they live, that's a big taimen food. They love those. So like a olive brownie kind of fly with a yellow tail is really good. In fact, when it was clear, I tied flies for those because I knew that they fed on those, but they aren't in the river that we were fishing. We had a last minute change in rivers. They still ate the yellow and brown fly quite well. It was probably one of the better flies.
And there's lennox too in the river that you were fishing.
Yeah, but that was the one that I was kind of disappointed in. I was looking forward, and I heard good stories like, oh, you'll get tired of catching those, and they're like 24 inches and blah, blah, blah. Great side. If you're tired of casting for 2 hours without a bite, you can slay these things. And I was looking forward to that, but on the Onan, they're much smaller. I caught one. The first fish that I caught there was maybe a 15-inch fish just at camp, casting a streamer in the riffle right where we first arrived at the river. And then when it got muddy, it was a little tougher. But the day it was clear, I mean, any little riffle, if you threw a dry dropper, you could hammer them, but they were like maybe 12 inches long. Huh. They said that river has small ones.
Yeah, on my trip on the Delgar, there was a couple guys that they didn't care about taimen. They just wanted to catch grayling and lennox. They just fished with elk caddis and parachute Adams. And
yeah, what size were they there?
There was a lot of lennox that were 20 inches, 21 inches.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Looked like sort of like a brown trout with a whitefish nose on it or something.
Yeah, they got like a little
little whitey mouth, but cool fish.
It's interesting the lennox, which is more like their trout, had like kind of a whitefish sort of mouth, but those little grayling, the Amur grayling, had a big, more trouty mouth for a grayling. So it's the opposite way. Because
all grayling really have an upward facing mouth.
I caught these grayling that were 8 inches long on a size 8 chubby. Yeah. They were able to get that in. I thought they would just bump it. Most of the Arctic grayling I've fished for, you kind of got to use a little bit of smaller fly.
Yeah, otherwise nothing's happening.
Yeah, they just bump it. You miss them.
What's your next big trip you've got planned?
I kind of had a feeling you'd ask me that, and I really don't have one. Well, yes, I do. This week I'm visiting for Thanksgiving, going to see my folks in New Jersey, and I hope to get into, there's a bunch of giant bluefin tuna running right now, and I hope to get into some of those if we can get some good weather. Yeah.
Are they close to shore?
Yeah. Yep.
What do you mean by giant?
200 pounds.
Ooh.
Or more. I mean, maybe in terms of bluefin, that's not a true giant.
In terms of fly fishing, that's giant.
Yeah, exactly.
Verging on impossible.
Yeah.
I'd like to get one, but I'd be like maybe 50 pounds.
I got a 65, and you talk about the fish fighting, I got a 65 pounder and caught it by myself. I was the only person on the boat, and I got it, and I had it in the boat in 13 minutes.
Wow.
65-pound tuna. So, and there's tactics. I mean, for things like that. A lot of tuna fishermen, like conventional tuna fishermen, they're using like these broom handle rods and pumping them up from the death spiral. And a fly rod, when it's fishing in a death spiral, that's why it's called a death spiral. It's brutal. I mean, even a 20-pound tuna in a death spiral is tough to get up.
Yeah.
But if you drive away from the fish, which seems like the wrong thing to do, you change your angle and it brings him up. So you
Really?
take your boat and drive away, and he's not in a death spiral anymore. He comes up, and then you gain on him. So,
Oh, shit, that's a
some of
great
it-
idea.
Yeah, some of it's just like creating the right angle on the fish, just like you would change a rod with a trout to steer him out of the current by leaning it left or right. I mean, you're in a boat, you can use the boat to actually do that. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So it's not just
I
on
have
the
never
fighting.
caught a bluefin, but I've read books on them. I'm fascinated. I've been around them. I've been out like on Stellwagen Bank and seen them show up. I think
it's
just
amazing
looking at
when you
them, they're
see,
one
like-
of the most amazing. It is
Yeah.
got to be the most amazing
When you
fish
see
in the
like
ocean.
a 200-pound fish that looks like a small car, like just gracefully jumping out of the water. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
They're
like-
machines.
They are. They're insane. And they're warm blooded. So they can live and fight differently than other fish because of that. And they are the ones that we're fishing them in South Jersey, and literally in North Jersey, the guys catch twice as many. I mean, we do the same thing and they just won't bite. They're so picky. I don't know what it is. Like all of us are just like, why are they like, I just looked again and the guy's like, an hour's drive north caught him again. And we had them all around and no boat, not a single boat caught one, and they're all
That
around.
big old eye. They're
They're
smart.
smart and selective. Yeah. The big
But
eye.
you'd think that they're going so fast. I always have it in my mind, this fish is swimming so fast, you can't possibly be picky because, they're going 30 miles an hour, but they are.
Sometimes, not always. I actually, the day before I caught that 65-pounder, there were some around. This was years ago. They were around again. And I took my dad out and we went out looking for them. And I was like, it was one of those days that was just glass smooth. Can't be any smoother. And I said to him, I said, I can't believe we didn't see anything. We'd fished all day from sun up till afternoon. I don't know what time it was. It was maybe like 3:00 in the afternoon. We'd been out since sun up. And I said, we were driving along and I said to him, I'm like, I can't believe we didn't see anything today, because today is the kind of day you could see a minnow jump from a mile away. And right as I said that, I was like, what is that? And I saw this ripple on the surface of the water and it looked like a school of bonefish swimming along, but we were in, 70, 80 feet of water at the time. And it just looked like school bonefish. So I veered off and we started driving over there. And just as we could kind of see into the water and see there were big fish, they spooked and took off. And we were kind of like, what the heck were those? And my dad was like, I think they were shark. And I was like, shark don't swim in a linear school like that. Maybe some migratory like hammerheads are in place. Not in Jersey. I've never seen sharks swim like that. And I was like, those were tuna. And so we just hung out to see if we saw them again. And sure enough, after a little while, there was a half a dozen schools of maybe 6 to 8, 10 fish swimming, just cruising on the surface. Now, these were going slow, just slow. And it took me a while, but I finally figured out if I just drove, like you couldn't run and gun, they would be gone. You couldn't go over to them. I had to just like putt barely faster than the fish was swimming, very slowly, no change in motor speed, no change in RPMs or sounds that they're hearing so you had to like just have like a lot of self-control and just slowly drive until you were far enough ahead of them and it'd be like, cast. And my dad ended up hooking 3 of them and they all snapped them off. The first couple, he just had the rig that he had, and I looked at his leader and I was like, Dad, did you see the size of these fish? They're bigger than you, and you have like 10-pound test on. So we changed his rig and got him rigged up, and then he, had another one I think that broke him off. I think he had 3 or missed one, maybe. First 2 broke him off, then I think he missed one, and then the next time I'm like, all right, I'm getting a shot. So I drove the boat up and ran up to the bow and let him cast from the stern, and I ran up. And he hooks another one from the back and it breaks off. And he's getting mad at this point because he's like, now I'm all rigged up ready. And it just instantly broke off. And I looked down in the water and there was like a 6-foot wahoo shaking the fly out of his mouth and like just snapped him off. And I was like, that one wasn't your fault. Like that would have been the coolest. Like, I mean, just like a random 6-foot wahoo in New Jersey on the fly. I mean, I've never even heard of anybody catching a wahoo in New Jersey on the fly, and not a lot of them caught anyway. And yep, it just bit them off. So it's just one of those kind of freak days. But those fish were moving very slow that day, not fast. So
the good thing about bluefin is they almost always move at the surface. That's why spotter planes can see them, and what those stick boats can harpoon them because that's how the harpoon guys get them.
They'll hang at the surface for sure and move around like that. That was, and I've talked to some tuna guys that like hate that condition. And I was like, I think that was a full fly advantage. Like we were getting them on a smaller fly, and you had to feed them like tarpon. Like that's why I had to get the boat in the right position and just put it, you had to cast it at the right ankle and have the fish swimming towards it and just eat it, put it right in his mouth. They weren't going to chase. They didn't want to chase it. You know, first couple times we thought tuna like ripped the fly fast, and no interest in that. And like guys with all their traditional kind of tuna techniques, they can't catch them like that because it just doesn't work. You had to feed them something small and stealthy, and that's an advantage with the fly rod. So sometimes the fly rod, even for those big fish, are an advantage. But we had another one last summer. We were looking for them, and we couldn't find any. So we marked some fish down on the bottom, and we didn't know what they were. And we were catching some earlier in the morning. We were jigging for some flounder and some sea bass and catching those pretty well. And so we marked these fish while we were looking around for these tuna. And we're like, let's go back to those fish and catch a few more just to, put a bend in the rod. So we dropped some jigs down, and I had a bite, and I set the hook, and my buddy's like, oh, that looks like a nice one. And then all of a sudden it just goes and just starts dumping my reel. And I was like, I got a tuna on. It was just my flounder, like jigging rod with like 20-pound test and a 30-pound leader. And it was just dumping it. So I was like, we got to chase this. And Tiki, this is last summer. Tiki's 11 years old. He jumps at the wheel and he grabs the wheel and he's like, how do you start it? It was hilarious. And then my buddy jumps at the wheel. We start chasing it. The reel got so hot. It was like just a level wind jigging reel. And the reel got so hot that the plastic reel seat got soft. And the reel, all of a sudden, it was like, ka-ching. I didn't know what happened because I'm like watching the line and trying to tell him which way to drive the boat. I thought the rod broke. And I was like, wait a second, the fish ripped the reel out of the reel seat, and I still was holding the handle. So it kind of like flew, and I managed to get the reel back into the rod. And then we were like, my buddy was like, if anybody I know can get this fish on like a flounder rod, it's you. And he said he was like just thinking that to himself, and then it went slack and it worn through the leader.
Wow.
So we
You're one step away from using like a Snoopy rod.
It was a Snoopy rod as far as tuna. Yeah. But, we're talking fly fishing here, but you learn a lot of stuff by doing other things. And the best anglers, you mentioned Steve Raychef, he's a great angler with any tackle. And I think, some of that stuff you can learn. I've learned, people ask me like what's changed the most in fly fishing, and one of the things is like sinking lines and stuff like that. And we learned, hey, those fish are down there at like 30 feet. We can hammer them on these jigs or whatever, but our flies are up top and they're not coming up top today. So sometimes those tuna might not come up top, or any fish, and we've developed equipment for it. My first sinking lines that I made were out of lead core trolling line. They cast like spaghetti. They were horrible. Yeah. But we were catching stripers because we had to get down there.
That's how the original West Coast steelheaders used on the Russian and the eel and stuff, lead core.
Yeah, it cast horrible. Just trolling line. But I probably still have some of them, just shooting, like braided line and building loops on them and sections of that. And you can get down there. So
I agree with you that watching what the conventional guys do is a great way to learn. I think another good example, you mentioned Ray Jeff, another good example of that is plain chocolate. Like a lot of his flies are all just, here's what the lures are doing. How do I make a fly that has the same kind of action or depth or profile or whatever is what the conventional guys are using.
Yeah, I was just fishing with a buddy of mine the other day, and we were going to do some streamer fishing. I was like, well, what do you have? He showed me, he's like, most of them are I have mostly black or olive. And I was like, well, I always carry, it's good to maybe have some white. Some places it's not my favorite color, but I know some guys who love white. And that worked really well in Mongolia.
White did?
Yeah, all white. My biggest fish came on an all white fly, and it just was easy. And I wouldn't have caught that fish if I wasn't using the all white fly, because he came at me when he ate it, and I didn't feel anything. I mean, I was working the fly, and actually the guy, I was in the bow then, and my buddy in the back was like, did you see that fish? And I was like, why? And he's like, I just noticed you like kind of get intent and fish a little harder. And I was like, I thought I saw like a shadow. So I was like swimming it a little more and working the fly. And then all of a sudden I could see it down in the water. And it was pretty glary and, but I could see the fly glowing like the white, and it just disappeared.
I'm a huge believer in that. Like,
yeah, it
out
just
here,
disappeared.
You drove along the Juniata River, like all white game changer for me in the spring. Just
because you can see it yourself.
You can fish it better because you're watching the fly the whole time.
Yeah.
So you know the action, and you're right. There's so many strikes that are just like you see the fly and all of a sudden it's gone. You didn't feel anything.
Nothing.
It's just gone. So it's in a fish's mouth. You set the hook. There is a fish there.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Got to get you out and fish here.
I'd like to.
Doesn't this river look fishy as hell?
Yeah, it always has looked fishy. Ever since driving along it, there's so many places to fish in it, like almost overwhelming for me because I love pocket water, and this is like the biggest pocket water river in the world.
Yeah,
it's like that I've ever seen, really.
But when you were at Penn State, you must have fished mostly the trout streams.
Trout streams, yeah. I was busy. I took a lot of credits.
Hey, it's college.
Yeah, but and so I went to a lot of the closer stuff right to State College.
Hey, Spring Creek's right there.
Yeah.
Penn's and everything else.
I fished Spring Creek the most, Penn's, Fishing Creek, and I fished some small creeks. I like creek fishing, so I fished a lot of, we're talking a lot about big fish, but I just as much like to go in a stream that you can step across and catch a 6-inch brook trout on a dry fly or whatever. It's
Joe Humphrey's little mountain streams.
Love them.
This episode is supported by TechStream, high-tech fly tying materials made in Italy and trusted by the best tyers in the world. TechStream sounds new to many anglers. That's because it's re-entering the U.S. and Canada this year through Mayfly Outdoors, the parent company of Ross, Able, Airflow, Airlight, Renzetti, and Dynaking. But globally, tyers have relied on these materials for nearly 2 decades. If you care about clean wraps, true colors, and materials that behave the same every time you sit down at the vise, TechStream delivers. Their threads, dubbing, chenilles, and specialty fibers make tying easier, more predictable, and more enjoyable. Look for TechStream in fly shops across the U.S. and Canada and level up your fly tying game. Did you take a fly fishing class when you were at Penn State?
It's one of my biggest regrets. I didn't. And there was I can't remember the guy's name, but there was just a couple of years that there was one instructor that just wasn't nothing against him, but it wasn't as legendary as the other ones because, there were some big shoes to follow. That was just in there for a little bit, a couple of years, and I can't remember. And that's when I went because Joe had just retired and this guy took over. And then, of course, George Harvey started before that, but I'd also been fortunate enough to know those guys and fish with them. So
you already knew how to fly fish. You didn't need to take a course also.
I might have felt a little snobby on that, and I shouldn't have, but because I regret it. So that goes back to some of those classes. Even if you think you know the stuff, you're always going to learn something. I learned several things just at the fly tying symposium a couple of weeks ago in New Jersey, and I've forgotten more about fly tying than I probably can remember.
This is one of the, you just really struck a chord with me, because this is like one of the things, like one of my pet peeves being in the, I run into people every once in a while. It's like, oh, I don't subscribe to Fly Fisherman magazine because I'm an expert. I know everything already. People have actually said that to me.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, just like the hubris of this, it
Yeah.
blows my mind, because every time I work on a story, I'm learning stuff. I mean, I've been fly fishing for 45 years.
Right.
I've learned things sitting here talking with you on the podcast.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could back up from a tuna.
To make them come up. Yeah.
I learned. I was 58 years old today when I learned that just
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And that's how fly fishing is for me. Like, you're learning
wouldn't-
stuff every day.
It wouldn't be a sport that we can do until we're 100 years old if we mastered it. Would you, like, if you were perfect at something, would you really want to do it every day?
Probably not.
I mean, I'm
you
not a
can
golfer.
never.
I'm not a golfer, but I understand, like, that's the appeal to golf, is because you could have your best day followed by your, the worst day you've had in 10 years, and then just all of a sudden get in your mind over something and have trouble with it. I mean, fly fishing is a mental game on the physical aspect of it, and your control with your fly rod and things like that, but also confidence or how you set a hook and things like that. I mean, I went 5 permit trips in a row one time. I think it was for I couldn't get my 20th permit, and I went 5 times in a row and got skunked. You're like, this sucks. And then I was fishing with Barry Beck, actually, and we were fishing for snook, and we saw a permit in this little bay, not a very big bay. And we saw a permit. We're like, whoa, permit. And, I had a snook rod in my hand, and then we saw another one, and then like both me and the guide were like, why don't we hold the permit rod if we're seeing these permit in a spot that usually doesn't have permit? And if we see a snook, we'll grab the snook rod, because the snook are going to be laying there where the permit, or you don't have much chance. It's like you got to put that cast out or it's gone. And usually. So I get the permit rod and we see another one. And I cast, and Barry and the guide are both like, where are you casting? And I'm like, right to that permit. And they're like, he's over here. And I'd lost the fish. I couldn't see him. And I was like, it was a smaller one, about like this big. And they're like, no, this was a pretty big one over here. And I was like, oh, well, we saw 2 different fish. And we're talking, and then I have a strike, and I hook it, and I catch the small permit.
You didn't even see it?
I didn't even see it. We were talking. I mean, it was like an accidental permit, and I caught it, but I just instantly felt like the stress that I was in my head because I couldn't catch my 20th permit, like, just go away. And I ended up catching 5 more that trip. Well, total of 5. I caught another one that day, and it was just like my confidence just like went through the roof, and I was like just really able to fish well, and because of I was like in my head that I couldn't catch these fish, so I couldn't.
It is a mental game, right?
Yeah,
Confidence is so much.
Yeah, but like to talk about like what we can learn, it's sometimes it's just about ourselves. Sometimes it's about the environment. Sometimes it's about the fish. Sometimes it's our technique. Maybe it's not that you're an expert. You're an expert at what you do, and maybe you're not opening your eyes to other things, and you don't have to. But you can still learn things that can affect the stuff that you're doing. But you can open up to, like, even just with fly fishing, people might argue, I mean, you've got a spay rod sitting in the corner there. I mean, sometimes I'll get out a switch rod or a spay rod or a 10-car rod or a bamboo rod just to challenge myself.
And all of a sudden you're starting from scratch, basically, yeah? Yeah,
I was fishing with a couple of Euro nympher guys one time. And I was fishing, they were Euro nymphing and maybe catching more, especially some bigger rainbows than me. And they were catching a lot of fish, but I was fishing a bamboo rod with a dry fly. And it was during a bluing hatch. And they were fishing there, Euro style, and I was fishing the bamboo rod, and I gave my bamboo rod to a guy, and I was like, here, try to catch one. And he couldn't hook one. He couldn't catch one at all. And he was just like, man, he's like, I just feel like I don't know. I'm like a beginner right now. He's like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And now that guy is actually pretty hardcore dry fly fisherman. So it kind of almost changed his world. He was like, because he had gotten to a point where he was very confident and very good in his nymphing game, but he didn't fish dry flies. And then he switched, and he was like, wow, like there's a lot of other things to learn.
It's true. One time, if you get really good at a certain thing, it is hard to switch out of that.
Your confidence
is
like,
up. Yeah, I'm catching fish. Why?
Yeah.
You don't leave fish to find fish.
It can even be like just your flies and learning stuff. I was notorious when I was guiding to be the only guy that was taking the fly off my client's line that was catching fish, and switching it up. But when the conditions changed, I was the first guy that all the other guides came to, and they're like, what are you using? Because if like whatever, let's just say like whatever hatch was going on, and we were fishing those flies and doing well with them, after a guy caught enough fish, I'm like, let's try this one, and what happened is I would stay ahead of the game. So when the conditions started changing, and maybe the what's happening under the water with the bugs was changing, and the fish were switching from what they were one hatch to the next, even though it wasn't apparently visible in like the air, I was still catching fish, and everyone's like, all the flies that we were just using are not working anymore. And then they'd all come to me and be like, what are you using? Because you're still catching them. And it's because I was taking off the one that was working and trying new stuff all the time, because I wanted to experiment. And, a lot of times it was also to teach a guy, I'm like, hey, you caught enough on this, the nymphs now. Let's try some dry flies, or let's try a streamer, see what's going on with that. And I can teach the guy, because when I guided, I always told people, I'm like, I can't guarantee any fish, but I can teach you something if you want to learn.
And you committed part of your time resource to research. So you're
it made it more entertaining for me. I was able to, I wasn't that, I didn't want to throw a bobber out and just stare at it all day, and you see
that's
that.
How angry, mean guides are created.
Just doing the same thing every day. Just
bobber fishing.
It's, you float a different stretch, try a different tactic, make it fun for yourself, and you'd be surprised sometimes. I mean, I even just playing with flies and trying different things. Sometimes I came up with this caddis pupa pattern last summer, and fishing the caddis hatch, and I was catching the exact same number of fish, except all of them were 2 to 4 inches bigger when I just put that fly on. I just started catching bigger fish. I don't know, they liked something about it. The bigger ones ate it, and the smaller ones were jumping after my, caddis dry, but this pupa, but I was fishing it dry, and the big ones ate it. So, just things like that can make it fun, You
got to F around and find out.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Sure. Yeah. It's about having fun. And so you can't be it. If you're so good, that you're saying that to somebody, you must not be having fun. Because that does, and I get the same thing for the shows, but I try to make sure there's something there for everybody. I mean, it could be, Simon doing, single-handed spay casting that's going to blow someone's mind, or it could be a beginner 101 thing. So choose what you want to watch, and to even circle back to some of those experts, some of the better up-and-coming guys, what they have done is they spent time watching their mentors and learning from them, going and see they spend a lot of time going to see a demo. So maybe you are really good. Maybe you should look into, if you are that good, and maybe you should look into being a professional and working in the industry if you're interested in it. But you can do that by going to see people's presentations and see. Don't just be like, no, I know all that. Maybe you can go and maybe you're like, wow, I really don't know all that. Or you might go and you're like, I know that. Now I've learned how to deliver that information better from this professional speaker. And now I can start teaching at my club or whatever, or add this to my guiding skills and do a better job instead of just cast it out there.
Pass it along to your kids, your grandkids, your local clubs, your friends. Pass the information along. I think that's
why you have
true.
people like Lefty and Joe that are still that taught and still teach, into their 90s, because that's their gift.
And I think the mentors like these guys, like if you look at people like Joe and Lefty, like one of the things that they left is that they brought people along like Blaine Chocolate and George Daniel. I mean, these are the guys that are leading the charge now. George is amazing. His presentations,
He's
like I go to the fly fishing show, I watch his presentations.
He's a great instructor. Yeah.
And presenter and everything. And you had a great mentor. You learned from one of the best.
You'll learn something, even if it's like, say he's doing a talk on Euro nymphing and you're not interested in it, you're still going to learn something, even if you're not a Euro nympher, about feeding a fish or behavior or where they live or something. You're going to learn something from him, because he really has a lot of information and he delivers it well, and he packs it in there. Just like if you've ever read one of his books, it's like over information.
It's dense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to be into it.
Pick out some things that you remember, because you're not going to remember it all. I'm impressed at the shows that the customers that come and they bring they're taking notebooks and and they got pages of notes from attending the seminars, and they're studying, and that's impressive to see. I mean, I think it's enough, and I suggest to our customers to look at the itinerary before and highlight things you want to get, because you get there and you get caught up in everything, and you'll miss presentations that you want to see unless you really schedule yourself. And it takes more than one day to do that. Every day we have different stuff, so you might spend a day seeing seminars or split them up, depending on the subject matter, and then do other times shopping and testing stuff. And you mentioned it, like Six Fly Shops. I kind of look at our show as the world's largest pop-up fly fishing shop when we're there, except you get to talk to people like you or Joe or Andy, the guy designing the rods, the people at the companies, the people designing the fly lines or new gadgets that might be there, or people making bamboo rods. That's the other thing that that I get is people are like, well, I didn't see anything new there. I'm like, it's a 2,000-year-old sport. Buy a new bamboo fly rod.
I learn something new every time I go there. That's why I always go. I'm always learning stuff new.
Yeah.
And it's not just the presenters and stuff like that. The last time I went to the New Jersey show, you know who I ran into just in the aisle? Hoagie Carmichael.
Yeah, I just talked to him the other day. He's going to be at the Marlboro show. Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome to hear.
He's getting a booth. Yeah, he's pretty cool.
And his son was there with him.
And Ben,
Yeah, and Ben did a story about his dad and, the Hoagie's original book on making bamboo fly rods that all of today's bamboo fly rod makers are studying. It's like the Bible of bamboo rod making.
Yeah.
And I learned so much. I got to meet the guy in person.
Yeah.
Quadrupled my knowledge about bamboo rod building, all just because I was in the aisle there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, that's one of the things that I would say to any younger listener that's maybe thinks that most of their information is going to come from the internet or just being out on the water. And you get a ton from both of those. But those legendary people they're not going to be around forever. And it's just you will regret not seeing them, not going to that concert that you wish you went to when it was there. And then you're like, I'll go another time, and the artist dies. It's just, they can't do that forever, and none of us will be able to, but you're going to get information from these guys that have put in their dues and their time that you won't get elsewhere, because some of it's not passed down. And quite frankly, most of those, older legendary guys don't have, social media channels, or they did it the old school way. They wrote articles, and maybe they don't even do that anymore. I think that, there's some information that it would be great to see in some of the magazines, but it might be tough to get from some of those guys. But just some information from some of those legendary guys or profiles that they deserve to be honored, in a way that's maybe even just shaking their hand, because there's a lot of people that don't even, I talk to young guys, they don't even know who some of these people are. People tying hollow flies that don't even know who Bob Popovics is.
Wow. No, go to the show, figure out who's who,
Yeah.
where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah. And get to meet them. It's cool. I think it's cool because it is a sport of history.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Cool
and
stuff.
It's like you were saying about the bands. It's like, I had a chance to see Led Zeppelin, but I didn't go back in the day. You could have gone to see Led Zeppelin in person, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And it's the same with a lot of these fly fishing guys. Like last time Joe was at on the castings pond at this pool
in Lancaster.
In Lancaster. Man, every person in the whole building was packed around.
If you didn't know who he was, it was cool. Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is your chance.
It was hundreds of people just standing there to watch him cast. And it was just like, I felt like choked up watching. I was so like proud to just like to know him and to also provide that to everybody. And people were there's phones. It was like, like it was,
it was like
superstar.
Our Robert Plant.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Exactly. It was cool. I'm surprised people didn't have like lighters out.
No, it's an awesome experience, and it is every time. So thank you very much for producing those shows and getting all of us together. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. We want it to be fun for all.
And thank you for taking time out of your day to come to the studio and
I enjoyed
hang
it.
out with you and your whole family.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Love it. Thanks, man.
Thank you.